So, hi, Niraj. Thanks a million for uh, giving your time to me today for this interview. Niraj Kapur is here with me today, and Niraj is a renowned author, a top LinkedIn voice, sales coach and trainer, and general all round good guy to know. And I met Niraj at a Kieran May event up in Belfast some months ago through a mutual connection, Ashling Lawler. And it was really nice to meet you, Niraj, and I appreciate you coming along.
No, you're welcome. I mean, Ashling's fantastic, great person, a lot of respect for her. Kieran too, just brilliant. And it's quite interesting as you grow in life and you change in life, you come across really good people, and then as a result of that, you meet more good people. So I'm lucky I met you through the both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit like LinkedIn, I suppose. What happens on LinkedIn is happening in the real world as well. Connections lead to connections.
True.
Niraj, to start off with, for people who don't know you yet, would you mind sharing a little bit of your story and how you came to be a LinkedIn voice and a sales trainer? What got you into all of that?
Certainly. I spent 23 years in London working in sales and then becoming a sales manager. And the last 7 years of working in London, I was what you would call a player manager. So half my day I'd be selling to hit targets, of course. Another half of the day I'd be coaching people to success. And the coaching people to success was the part I got more satisfaction from. Being able to take people who were maybe new to sales and helping them grow gave me so much joy and happiness. I'm like, this is what I want to do in my life. It's just, it's a real satisfaction of just helping people grow and change and develop and progress. And but I was too chicken because I was on a good salary and good perks. I didn't want to quit. And towards the end, I think just traveling 3 to 4 hours a day in London. This is before lockdown. It became so unbearable. No boss would let me work from home. Because in those days, bosses used to say, you cannot work from home, only lazy people work from home. It's a stupid idea, it will never take off. And I disagreed with them, but of course, I couldn't prove I was right. And because they had more money than me and bigger job titles, they always got their own way. So I wrote a book called Everybody Works in Sales because I wanted to raise the standards of sales everywhere. And it became a bestseller. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing my book in the charts next to Richard Branson's, Brian Tracy's. Okay, my book didn't even sell anywhere near what theirs did, but it was so lovely being in the charts. And the first few months of book royalties, they were so huge. I thought, yes, I'm going to quit. And so I quit and I became a business owner. I thought, I'm going to make it, I'm going to smash it, I'm going to become successful. And then 3 months later, the book royalties ran out. And I'm like, oh God. And then I had to really learn how to run a business, which of course was a different skill completely, one I was totally unprepared for. And one in all fairness that I really struggled with for the first 2 years. I mean, my first years of business were brutal because I had no idea how to run a business. And because I had no money, I wasn't investing in a coach, which I should have been doing. And at the same time, just to make things even worse, went through a traumatic divorce after 21 years of marriage. So I became a LinkedIn top voice because after the traumatic divorce, um, it was just pretty unbearable. And then lockdown happened. And the few clients I had said, we're sorry, we have no money left. So I found myself alone, isolated from the world, zero income, which affects your fragile male ego. How do I pay the bills? What kind of man am I? And it was very difficult. And the thing is, Paula, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I'm not abusive. So I took the pain out myself and I went from 14 and a half stone to 20 stone. I just ate 6 meals a day, fish and chips, kebabs, whatever I could get my hands on. It became quite self destructive. And my weight ballooned. And I was speaking to my parents after a visit to my doctor. I was diagnosed obese. And they said, right, put everything in storage, come back home right now. You cannot be obese because you'll get so many health problems. I was already getting back problems and migraines 24/7 because of all the sugar and food inside me. Um, so I put everything in storage, went back home to live with my parents. And I started talking about embarrassment on LinkedIn and shame and how I had this great career, successful wife, beautiful home. And now I'm so broke and destroyed and broken as a human being. I have to live with my parents to survive. And that post went viral, which I did not expect. In all fairness, if I could afford therapy, I would have gone to therapy, but I didn't. I put it on LinkedIn, and that post went viral. And then I started talking about online dating, and how that's just like sales. Because I was trying to meet somebody new and fall in love, and people became fascinated by my story of online dating. I wasn't fascinated by it. I was frustrated by it because I was meeting the wrong people, getting ghosted, meeting people who looked nothing like their profile. I mean, it was just an awful experience. But I set myself a goal. I'm going to keep trying 3 times a week until I find true love. And after 70 dates, I finally met Rachel. But but the whole journey was put on LinkedIn. And I went from being a nobody to getting 15,000 followers in a year. And LinkedIn, unbeknown to me, were following my entire journey. And because they were following my journey and loving my journey and seeing how I was being so vulnerable and authentic and going through this whole journey of trying to find friends in your late 40s, living with your parents, starting all over again, they thought, right, this is incredible. And that is how I got the LinkedIn top voice.
Wow, I can't believe how great you are at sharing everything, Niraj. Uh, that's very brave of you. At the beginning, was that something that you were afraid of, or were you always naturally an open person?
I must have deleted the first post I did about 6 times. I just was about to press post. No, no, I can't. Because I was so scared. Because most of my clients in a one-to-one coaching level are women, I'm understanding a lot about paralysis, fear, imposter syndrome, and the worry about being judged. Because all female clients I have, no matter how successful they are, experience that too.
Yeah.
And so, because I've experienced it myself and I've had to learn to deal with it myself, it means as a coach, I'm very able to help other people go through that. But yeah, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I think I was a little disappointed as well in myself because I've spent 4 days at Tony Robbins' UPW, which costs an absolute fortune. I've read hundreds of books on personal development. To those of you who are listening to this in a podcast, there's a big bookshelf behind me. There's a bookshelf downstairs as well, full of books on mindset and emotional intelligence and growth. I really felt I should have been able to handle this. And anytime I've struggled in my life, Paula, I've always found the strength to come back. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes a few days, a week. I always come back strong. But the divorce was the first time in my life I was just kicked and beaten and bruised. And I think sometimes in life you need a bit of luck. And looking back, I can look back now, sort of 4 years later, and realize how incredibly lucky I was that my parents are still alive and they said, right, you come back and live with us until you get better. And that was lucky. It doesn't matter what anybody says, I acknowledge that. That was incredibly lucky.
So, Niraj, it's really fascinating that you work with so many women. So many of the clients that you have are women. And I wonder why you think that is. I work with a good few women, and I have in the past as well. And I just wonder, are women more open to coaching? My own belief, from my own experiences as a woman, is that there's confidence is always an issue,
Yes,
especially when it comes to sales, because I think you need confidence in sales.
100%.
But what do you think, Niraj? Why do you think so many women are coming to you for coaching?
There's no on my website or even my LinkedIn About section, which is the most visited thing I have, that says anywhere that I work with women. So I'm really proud that 80% of my one-to-one coaching clients are women. And I've often thought about it, but of course I do ask them as well. And what's fascinating is when a man works with me, he'll see a post I do or read an article I've written and go, I must hire this guy. They meet me, they hire me. With women, it doesn't happen like that. They'll read an article I've done, make a note, that's interesting. Read another article a week later, see a video I've done, and quite often they'll follow me for at least a few months before they reach out because they want to be very careful about who they approach. Because naturally, it's your money and it's your money you're investing, so you want to make the right choice. So a lot of them tend to follow me for at least a few months first, and then they reach out in LinkedIn DMs or through my website and say, I'd like to just have a chat with you about potentially getting some coaching, or I need some help with my sales. Can we have a chat? That normally is how the conversation starts. I'm still waiting for the day somebody messages me and going, I must hire you right now. How much is it? But that's never happened. There's always another way of phrasing something I find. Um, and whenever they approach me, it's fascinating because the first session I do with people when it comes to sales or LinkedIn is never sales or LinkedIn. Nine
Right.
times out of 10 is vision boards, mindset, routines and habits and attitude. Because if your confidence is low, if you're terrified of sales, there's nothing I'm going to teach you that's going to make a difference. So we have to get the mindset right first. And again, that separates me from most trainers because most trainers just go straight in with a sale, but that's not good enough. You have to look at where people are in their life. And sometimes having teenage kids, sometimes being divorced, or even worse, being married a long time and having a husband that ignores you does have an impact on performance at work. So we're human beings, and those things do affect us. And you have to be aware of these things, and you have to acknowledge these things, and you have to help and support people in a way that isn't mansplaining. That's really important as well.
I think that's brilliant because I think so many trainers out there or people that say that they can 10x your revenues and all that stuff. It sounds like they're offering a magic solution that is just going to happen overnight. And I love that idea of going back to build a really strong foundation first. So really well done on that. Would you agree then that like with women, their biggest challenge is probably getting that base of confidence right and how they see themselves, not having that imposter syndrome, I suppose.
Imposter syndrome is definitely a big issue. It tends to happen with women that are successful. Of course, it happens with women who aren't that successful too, but it happens a lot with women who are successful because we all have a fear of being judged. Even though we shouldn't, we do. And we're often worried because women are judged, and this has come from the years I spent 23 years in corporate, but also I see this at networking events and I see this at speaking events and business conferences I attend. When a man expresses himself, people rarely will comment on it. But when a woman may express herself exactly the same way, she will nearly always get judged, rightly or wrongly. And I don't like that. And I think women will often get judged by how they dress and how they come across. And I empathize with that because don't forget, for those of you listening, even though I got an Indian name, I got a strong Northern Irish accent. I grew up Indian in Northern Ireland. And I know what it's like to work as hard as the next person and not get recognized. I know what it's like to not being treated as fairly as I should be. There's a tremendous crossover between people of color, or immigrants, if we like to call them, and women. So I think I empathize so much more. And I think also because of my career, I have fought for equal pay and I have fought for women in the workplace and usually get ignored by it because I wasn't high enough in a company. And sometimes I fought for it and I had success, which was amazing. In the shipping industry, I worked in an all male office and I was one of the first people to hire female women selling in conferences and selling advertising. This is in 2012, 2013. And that was incredible. And I got criticized, I was vilified, people put me down, but I stood my ground because I believed what I was doing was right. And that was very difficult. And it proved to be right. And our two best salespeople were women. They weren't men who'd been in the company for 10 years, they were women. So, a lot of what I do is based on personal experience, but a lot of what I do is just based on, I think, doing the right thing.
Oh, fantastic. And maybe it's something to do as well with uh, women being able to, or more interested in building relationships than just making a quick sale. Maybe the kind of sales that women make might be more long term.
Women are
Uh,
very good at long term selling, men are better at short term selling. Women, especially those who are introverts, I find are brilliant at networking because a lot of people assume wrongly that to go to a networking event you have to be very charming and charismatic and be able to tell stories. And don't get me wrong, those are great advantages to have if you can do it. But my own daughter is now 23 years old, approaching 24, and my stepdaughter is 20, and my eldest is a complete introvert. And her worst nightmare is walking into a room full of people
yeah.
and having to talk to any of them. It's her worst nightmare. She goes, Dad, I don't know how you talk on stages. Seriously, why do you do it for? But I think it's like anything, it's consistency, it's practice. It's not that I'm not scared. When I first started speaking years ago on stages and conferences, I was terrified. I mean, the first 30 or 40 times I had wobbly legs, I was feeling, it was horrible. But it's like anything, you face your fears, you consistent, you practice, you overcome your fears, and eventually after about 30 or 40 attempts, it's not that bad. And you actually look forward to it now. Same things happens at networking events with women. I always say you don't have to go into the room and be the most charming person or the most funny person. The most interesting person at a networking event is the person who asks good questions and the person who listens. Never underestimate the importance of that. So if you're a woman and you're a little shy of sales or shy of networking, don't worry about it. Work out what skills can I develop that I already have, or what can I work on that can make me better. But don't for one second assume you have to be like everybody else. I am not like any other sales trainer out there. I'm so different, which is something I've deliberately placed myself as because I don't want to be seen like other sales trainers. And that's actually unintentionally helped me with my brand and with my business as well. And that's why I always encourage other people to do it too, Paula.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this is a marketing podcast, Niraj, so we better talk a little bit about marketing as well. And I've worked in marketing for a long time. It's 29 years now, would you believe? And I often come across clients and in big corporations and small, where the lines between marketing and sales are very blurred. And
Mm.
also, I work mostly now with small businesses and SMEs, and it's hard for them to see the difference between sales. There's always kind of more of an urgency around sales, and that seems to get more of the attention in terms of the company focus and maybe the resources that they have. And I was just wondering, from your point of view, what do you see as the difference between marketing and sales, and what the crossover is, or how they might work together from in your experience?
Well, I'm quite lucky because I spent 10 years of my life at Marketing Week. And in the 80s and 90s, Marketing Week and Marketing were the two biggest magazines in the UK. And if you worked in marketing, or even if you were at the Chartered Institute of Marketing, what you read was Marketing Week. Some cases marketing, but you read Marketing Week. It was the publication. So I'm quite lucky I spent 10 years with marketeers. And again, most marketeers I worked with were introverts. They were not extroverts. And I often was surprised the resentment marketing had towards sales because we earned double our salary. And I was often surprised the attitude salespeople had towards marketing because we felt none of them could sell. And there was this battle which constantly went on. And it would make life easier. And I didn't do this until I became a manager. I wish I'd done it earlier, but it's one of these things you just don't know what you don't know. And when I became a manager, I made the marketing and salespeople sit beside each other. And every single person, without exception, detested me as a result of that. This is against actually one of the marketing girls went to head of HR and said this is against my human rights. I mean, people were so offended by what I did. But quite often when you do things that are very different, it does freak people out. But I always do things for a reason. And of course, I don't always get it right. But I get it right most of the time. That's a good sign. And I made marketing and I made sales sit beside each other. Because I wanted marketing to understand salespeople did not go out for 3 hour lunches every day and come back with a deal. And I wanted salespeople to understand marketing is not just people who can't sell, which is what most salespeople think of marketeers. Marketing is budgeting. Marketing is planning. Marketing is doing three people's job at once. I mean, marketing involves so much, but salespeople didn't get that. They just saw that, oh, you're not getting me enough leads. Why aren't you getting me enough leads? And by forcing them to sit together, after they spent a few weeks just resenting me, all of a sudden they began to understand each other. And guess what happened? They began to respect each other. And guess what happened? Marketing started to do better because they understood more about sales. And salespeople started to respect marketing because we started to do better as a result of getting better leads. And the whole thing worked beautifully. In every company I've gone into, I have made sales and marketing sit beside each other. So that's the first thing. They have to understand each other better. With small businesses, I do find the focus is more on sales than marketing, and that's purely from a cash flow perspective. My first 2 years in business, I didn't know it wasn't about marketing. It's about cash flow. You're just trying to survive, and so all I cared about was sales. And as a result, my business didn't grow the way it should have because I wasn't focusing on building relationships. I was focusing on winning sales. And
Mm.
that was a painful lesson I had to do many times wrong before I actually learned it, sadly. Um, but marketing is key. But it's not just marketing, it's marketing with features and benefits. A lot of marketeers, don't forget, sell to me every day. and they usually get binned, deleted, in some cases blocked, because I get feature driven emails instead of benefit driven emails. And that's not good enough. And that's the most marketing I get. So marketing does need to understand sales better. It's 100%. And people in marketing really have to learn LinkedIn, because 95% of marketeers I've met have no idea how to use LinkedIn. And what's worse is they teach the staff to, oh, just share my blog. Just share what I do. That is not how you build a brand on LinkedIn. It is not how you market yourself on LinkedIn at all. The worst thing you can do is share something. You have to create original content to be recognized on LinkedIn. You will not build a name for yourself or generate incoming inquiries or leads of any kind by just sharing posts. And it's very important every marketeer listening understands that.
Very good. I'm sitting here in trepidation, Niraj, waiting for you to say, and like your LinkedIn profile, Paula.
Yeah, I have
But
comments now, but we'll keep that private afterwards.
thank you for that. Thank you for that.
But in all
But
fairness, a good example of you using LinkedIn well was you promoted Wexford, was it Marmalade?
Wexford
And
Folk Preserves, yeah.
preserves, and I love marmalade. Some people like honey, some like jam. I mean, I like honey as well. Jam, not so much, but I love marmalade because it's really hard to get good marmalade. The Robertson's mass-produced nonsense you get in the shops is not good. The Sainsbury's and Tesco's own brand, oh my God, it's hideous. It's sugar. It's not marmalade. But you get the Wexford preserves, oh, beautiful. You get any kind of top quality marmalade that's twice the price of normal marmalade. So that post got my attention. And that's a good use of using LinkedIn properly for marketing. So that was actually a very good post you did.
Thank you very much. I must bring up some marmalade to you now. Next time I'm coming up to the north,
But you have to
I'll have.
keep my time for this podcast. I'm expecting at least 2 pots of marmalade next time.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And another thing, I actually love Marketing Week, and I did read it religiously when I was in London, and I read it online now. And I did the mini MBA, mini marketing MBA with Mark Ritson. That the Marketing Week has these MBA courses now, and it was brilliant, really good. Such a strong brand. Marketing Week is, and it's still doing really well, which is great to see. But I wonder as well, do you use a coach yourself, Niraj?
Oh
Do
God,
you
yes. I do.
still now? Do you?
Oh, it's
Um,
still. You have to keep growing. There's an old saying, it's an old personal development saying, which is very true. And it relates to every element of business. If you're not growing, you're dying. I'm sorry, as crude as that sounds, it's a fact. And if you stop growing, you're in trouble. So I have Gail. Gail's my coach. She's a brilliant coach. I work with her every month. John's my LinkedIn coach. I work with him once a quarter just to make sure I'm doing good work. Harry, I work with on a speaking level. So anytime I speak at events, again, I work with Harry. You need to have good people around you, people who are smarter than you, or at least who think different to you. Um, but these people have to have your best interests at heart. And I stress that part very strongly. They have to have your best interests at heart. Because the first 2 coaches I hired, when I did end up hiring coaches, were terrible. They were
oh,
so expensive. They showed off a lot online and social media. I was very impressed by them, and I met them in real life. And they turned up. The first guy turned up late for meetings all the time. Wore a tank top and tracksuit bottoms to our first meeting. He was a complete. I said, "You don't look like the guy in the photograph." He goes, "Oh, that guy was a model." I'm like, "What?" Because the model was the guy I hired. He was so smart and elegant looking, and the guy in real life was a scruff. He was a mess. And after our first session, which he was late for, he said, "Niraj, name me 3 people you can introduce me to who'd like to do business with me." I'm like, "I don't know 3 people. It's our first session." He goes, "Yeah, but think about it, Niraj. This is how business is done. You're new to business. You want to succeed. Find me 3 people." And it was just awful. And I think one of the reasons I do well as a coach is partly because I've had the bad coaches, but it's also because I invest so much in myself in coaching. And again, I do mention the word luck a bit. You know, I was raised by women, my mother and my grandmother, which is a big advantage. I married, I had an arranged marriage, but the woman I married is still today a very strong, even though we're divorced, a very strong, independent, successful businesswoman. My daughter is an introvert, but completely successful. My 23-year career in London, for the first 18 years, my bosses were women. In publishing, Annie was my boss. She was a top publisher at Marketing Week for almost 10 years. Charlotte Gooch, who's my boss at The Guardian, and Lindsay Roberts is one of the very few female CEOs, about 14 years, only I think two or three of them. And she was a female CEO. I had to report to her. So I was lucky. I had amazing female bosses. So don't get me wrong, when you've been raised by women and had female bosses, you just see things differently, completely, and you understand things differently. So I do recognize, don't get me wrong, I'm very lucky and I do have an unfair advantage over other people, no doubt about it.
And another thing that I noticed from reading your book, Everybody Works in Sales, which I can thoroughly recommend. It's a
No, thank
really
you.
good. It's actually a really good read. I read it because when I Googled you after meeting you, I saw that you were an author, and I said I better have a look at this and see what it's like. And it's a terrific read with tons of really good takeaways from it to really sort of raw and real stories that you shared. But one thing I noticed as well is that you love an owl list. You're a great man for the lists. And I wondered, uh, how do they help you in your life?
It's very important when you're teaching people anything as a coach. Keep things as simple as you possibly can. And I like lists of one, threes, and fives. If you say to people, look, do seven things, do 10 things, it's too much for people to take on board. Especially in today, it's 2024, middle of 2024 right now. We're approaching 2025. People's attention spans are horrendous. So you can't say to somebody, do 10 things. It'll never happen. But I'll often say after every training session, okay, what three things are you going to implement as a result of this coaching session? And I keep you accountable because the coaching part's easy. It's the keeping you accountable afterwards. That's the important part. And again, most coaches don't do this. Most coaches have a training session, and if you want to speak to them again, you got to pay for it. It doesn't work like that with me. You pay for the coaching session, but you get the accountability in between on email or WhatsApp. And I speak to you in between without charging you. And again, that gives people a huge leap forward in their careers. And you have to do things like that. So that's why I like lists, because it's easier for people to learn and understand. And when people hire me for coaching, I'm very mindful it's their money. Yes, it's a business expense you can write off, but it's still their money. So I'm mindful of the fact I need to get this person some kind of result. And that result is often more confidence. Quite often the result is they want to get more meetings. Quite often the result is they simply want to get some emails replied to, because most people have no idea how to do emails. Most people cannot send emails or even follow-up emails. And I have to teach them that. And when they start getting people responding to them, it's like, a little light bulb goes off in their head. But that's all down to these small lists and action points people get at the end of coaching. I'm a big believer in lists.
I love that. I'll make a list of three things now after this podcast interview of things I'm going to do based on our conversation, Niraj.
Good.
Uh, and what tips would you have for women in particular to be better at LinkedIn?
If you want to be better at LinkedIn, don't look at it as selling your services. Look at it as helping people. Same goes for sales. When I speak to women who are terrified of sales, I say, look, you're not selling anything. You're serving people. You're helping people. And that simple word shift makes a huge difference, especially to introverts or people who don't like sales. So that's the first thing. You're not selling, you're helping people. And second of all, when you're giving value to people on LinkedIn and you're trying to find clients, write about your everyday experience because that's the easiest thing to write about. So I did a post recently called Sales Lessons Learned from Bruce Springsteen. I went and saw Bruce Springsteen in concert. And the next day on LinkedIn, so many of my network had selfies with Bruce Springsteen playing in the background. One of them had herself sitting on somebody's shoulders, but nobody had anything meaningful at all. So again, stand out, be different. I wrote an article saying, here's 5 things I've learned from Bruce Springsteen that will help you in sales. 1, be consistent. 2, work your ass off. 3, surround yourself with smart people. And again, it's just being a bit different, but also writing about your everyday experience. This morning, I was observing a client demo, and the client was trying to rebook their client, and they didn't have any success because they rushed into the demo. So I did a post today at lunchtime saying, look, don't rush into it. Take your time, okay? This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you're rebooking your customers, think about how you can help them. Think, who else is involved in this decision making process? You got to ask these questions. Don't just say, "Hi, it's time to rebook. Do you want to go ahead?" So many people do that, or they're like, "Hi, how's the weather?" "Yeah, weather's raining in Northern Ireland as usual." "So yeah, your contract ends in a few months. Do you want to continue?" That's not how you rebook people. So my post today was about rebooking your customers and how to do it in a really good way. So just write about your everyday experience because that's what makes you different. It's not copying other people. Copying other people leads to nothing. But writing about your own experience is important because it's unique to you. And there's a good chance other people will have experienced what you're going through.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Coincidentally, the post that I put up this morning was about I'm a member of a gym, and they changed management a while ago. And I kept waiting for the new manager to ask me, "Oh, what do you think of the gym? Have you got any issues? Are you happy or whatever?" Because you know what? I love the gym that I go to, but it's not as clean as it could be. And when you're doing a plank and you're looking at the floor and you're looking, "Oh my God, what am I going to get?" And they never did it. And I just got a text this morning um, from them asking me, saying, "Oh, a gentle reminder that your membership is up for renewal. Please call the number to renew." And I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to, because you don't like, there was no relationship built up there with that manager. There's nothing there saying, "Oh, if everything is okay, hope you're enjoying it." But like that, like you say,
I have no loyalty to gyms. Gyms, insurance company, all the same to me. I go for the cheapest option. I have no relation because nobody builds a relationship. Nobody. They just don't. Same with insurance companies. I was with my insurance company for 5 years. I recently sent them a message saying I'm thinking of cancelling. They got in touch with me very quickly.
yeah,
That's very nice. I've not heard from you for 5 years. That's why I'm thinking of
yeah.
leaving. Oh, sir, we're so sorry. We just assumed because you hadn't contacted us, we were doing absolutely fine. I said, but it's been 5 years. Have you not tried to contact me once? Um, no, we hadn't.
No.
He actually said to me,
Oh
"Oh,
Lord.
no, I hadn't even thought of contacting you once." Because they're just young kids. They don't care. They're just there to earn money, to, pay their rent and go out and have a nice time, which is what a lot of people work for. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But it's just bad training for companies. So many of the clients I work with recommend me to other clients, not because I do the bare minimum for them. They do it because if they hire me for 3 coaching sessions, they get about 4 coaching sessions out of it worth of material, plus they get bonus content, plus they get support. They get more than what they expect. And nobody expects that. They often get a thank you card. If they're based in the UK or Ireland, they get a thank you card sent in the post. And quite
Ah,
often a book, which I buy from Amazon out of my own money and send to them as a thank you for becoming a client. You've got to do things nobody else is doing, and you've got to over deliver, over deliver, over deliver. And not all the time, but a majority of that time, that client will then invest more with you. Or in a year or 2 years' time, when somebody says, "Do you know somebody good?" They'll go, "Oh, yeah. Oh, I had a great experience with Niraj. Get in touch with him." That's one of the best ways of doing business. Yes, I rely on LinkedIn leads every month because of the quality of my content. However, that's only about 30% of my revenue. About 60% of it is clients referring me to other people. And that is always the best and easiest way as a business owner or a small
mm.
business to generate revenue. The other 10% comes from my books or me speaking at events. That's a bit more unpredictable, but that's still 10% of my revenue.
It sounds like, really, Niraj, that people like you and refer you because you genuinely care about them and you really want to improve their situation, however you can do it. So well
That,
done for
that's
that.
the thing as well, Paula. It's like when you get older, when you get to your 50s, like I am, you just see life differently and you just want to make the most of each day. I've spent more time in the last 2 years going to funerals and weddings, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
And majority of my friends don't have fathers anymore, and many are starting to lose their mothers. So I am all about life at the moment. I'm all about experiences. I'm all about giving. I'm all about just having the best day possible. And you don't have the best day possible living for yourself. You have the best day possible by trying to help people as much as you possibly can. Of course, doing charity work, being a good parent, a good brother, a good sister, a good friend, whatever that might be. But when you just change that little change in life, I'm not going to sell, I'm going to help other people get results. It's very different. And I urge anybody listening who's a little unsure about sales, just have a good think about that.
Mm,
Who can I help today? Who can I serve? Instead of what do I have to sell to get some extra cash flow in? And because it makes
yeah.
you less desperate as well. It makes you more confident. It makes you more able to walk away from people who are not your potential client. Because a lot of people will do business with anybody who pays them. And again, at the beginning of your career, I get that. When you set your business up, I get it. I've made those mistakes. But as you become more confident, you do attract better customers and you're able to say no to people who you know will be an absolute nightmare to work with.
No, very, very wise. You mentioned there the work that you do for charity and that you give to charity, and that's something that I found really interesting in your book as well. That you are all about giving to get back, I guess, or
Mm.
just giving for the because it feels good and you get that kind of karma back from it. Do you still do that? And like myself, I, I love living in Ireland because you get pulled into doing stuff for the community, whether you like it or not. and,
Yes.
and there is a good, strong community. There's loads of things you can get involved in. But I have to say, my charity giving is very ad hoc. It's very sporadic, and it's kind of based on, who asks for what, when, and how you feel about it, and how it tugs the heartstrings. But I liked your ethos around it to kind of formalize it and make it something that's premeditated.
Mhm.
And yeah, so fair play for doing that. And if you can just talk a little bit about that to maybe inspire others to follow suit, that'd be great.
Certainly, again, surrounding yourself with good people. My father got an MBE from, well, he's King Charles now. He was Prince Charles in 2014 because he spent 20 years partly as a doctor working weekends. Because back, 30, 40 years ago, whenever a woman gets breast cancer, there was no support given to the husbands and kids back then. They didn't know how to cope. And he spent all his weekends going to their houses to help them cope, voluntarily, by the way.
Wow. Wow.
And so seeing a father do that was very inspiring. And as an adult, I remember my 20s being broke and dad not giving me money. I'm really broke. He says, "Hey, there's kids starving in Africa. I don't care. Work harder, do overtime." He had no sympathy. My father's an immigrant. Zero
Yeah.
sympathy, no filter, tells it like it is. And he was right. And he goes, if you want to feel better, give to charity. I said, "Dad, I'm broke. I'm not giving to charity." And I hate that attitude, but it's an attitude I used to have. I'm broke. I can't give to charity. And what most people don't seem to realize is when you, oh, sorry, that's my reminder for my next.
You're grand.
Yeah, it's okay. I've got a few minutes left. What most people don't seem to realize is when it comes to giving, the more you give, it's not about the financial. It's like your soul feels better because you're making the world better. And yes, I know there's no saying everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. But one of the best ways to change yourself is to help others and give. Not give and say, okay, God, how are you going to reward me now? But just give and expect nothing in return. And there are charities that I give, like Milton Keynes Hospital, like Willen Hospice, like Movember. I'm not an ambassador for Movember. They made me an ambassador last year, which I was so honored by, where I do a lot of fundraising for. But then there's a lot of my clients and friends who will do marathons and hike up hills just to raise money for a brain tumor charity or a Parkinson's charity. And I'll just give to them to support my friends. And then one thing I started doing the last year, just to make it more fun, is I'll spend, what would it be in euros? Say about 14 or 1500 euros now for a table of 10 at a gala ball. And I'll invite my clients along and we'll have a great evening. Or sometimes I'll just invite friends along and we'll have a great evening. There's a mental health charity called Making Waves. They're only 5 miles from my house and they help children with mental health challenges. And right now we have a mental health epidemic. We've had it for
Mm.
years, but we don't talk about it much anymore. And it's really affecting kids in a big way. And this charity takes kids surfing
Oh,
and
wow.
getting them out in the cold water, out in the fresh air, away from their phones helps so many kids. I just bought a table of 10 back in March and invited all my mates along, and we had a brilliant time. Whereas with the hospital charities, that's more me inviting my clients and saying, thank you for being my client. You don't owe me anything. Just bring along some money for a raffle ticket. And if you want to bid for anything, bid for it, and you buy your own drinks, but the tickets are on me. And I love doing that because it's great for bonding as well. It's great for clients, but ultimately you raise more money when you say to people, look, I paid for the table, but please belong 20, £30 cash just for raffle tickets. And we end up raising 200, £300 as a table just on raffle tickets then because people want to give back to you for buying them tickets kind of thing. So it's just a beautiful, I guess you call circle of karma. You can call
Yeah.
it what you like, but it's just giving to make the world better. And I'm a huge believer of that, Paula.
Well done. Well, you've inspired me anyway, Niraj, and hopefully will inspire other people to follow suit as well. Yes, finally, I was wondering, because in your book again, you're talking about a lot about the importance of honesty in sales,
Yes.
which it really gets my goat when people tell lies in marketing as well and fudge the truth and that. I think honesty is very important. But and I was wondering how you feel about AI uh, with regards to that now, what effect it's going to have, especially on LinkedIn, actually, with people just getting AI, using AI to write their posts, to create images and, um, email prospects, things like that, using AI and not really being their genuine selves. Does it worry you at all? Or,
It does worry me, yes. The good news is AI images don't do well on LinkedIn compared to real images. So that's a big plus. AI, unfortunately, LinkedIn are investing very heavily in AI right now. So they're trying to encourage people when you connect with somebody, you have AI prompts sometimes, which I cannot stand because they're awful. And I just wish LinkedIn and a lot of these big companies would take the time to talk to people like me who actually work in sales and say, what's the best way to communicate? But LinkedIn is a big multi-billion company owned by Microsoft. They don't unfortunately have the self-awareness to think we should speak to someone like me. They probably have about a dozen consultancy companies they speak to instead who know nothing about sales. Now, I've seen people write articles from AI, and they've actually said, you know what, I wrote this article with the help of ChatGPT. And I look at it and I can tell because it's far too wordy and it's not very well written. So you can tell a mile off. When someone sends me a message, I don't look to see is it AI written. I look to see is it copy and paste. So if you've just sent me a generic message and it doesn't mention my business or something I've done or something relevant to me, I immediately go to archive and I never see your message again. And it's a wasted opportunity. So please don't be tempted by shiny objects. I understand why you
mm,
are. Shiny objects are very tempting. AI, by all means, be aware of it. Of course, you should be aware of it. I'm keeping a close eye on it. But in terms of selling, it's at an infant stage. It's just not making any impact whatsoever right now. And the only people who say it is making an impact are those people who are trying to sell something to you.
mm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how what way it goes and how it develops. I'm sure it will be really useful to all of us. But my own feeling is that the human element is going to become more and more important to show that you're actually an authentic, real person.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
yeah. But look, I've taken up a lot of your time, Niraj, and I really appreciate all the amazing advice that you've given throughout this interview. Do you have any final bits of tips or whatever for the listeners?
If you want to learn more about sales, look, go to nirajkapur.com, read my blogs. They're free of charge. There's so much to learn. If you're on LinkedIn, send me a personalized request saying, I heard you on Paula's podcast, happy to connect. If you send me a generic request, I'm sorry, I ignore those. I don't want to have generic relationships with anybody. As a result, I do not accept generic requests, so please don't send me one.
Brilliant. Well, I'll include a link to your website and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and hopefully people will get in touch with a very personalized message for you. But thank you so much, Niraj. I look forward to keeping in touch with you on LinkedIn into the future. And
Absolutely.
all right, take care. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time, Paula. Bye bye.
Bye bye.